Hey, it's Louis Max for Grind and Pivot. Hope you're all well in these challenging times. I recently had a great conversation with Joe Scollo, legendary Long Island musician and founding member of the band Full House. Joe has been a mainstay of the Long Island, New York music scene since the late 70s and is still rocking it out. He has some great stories, and I think you will find out what he has to say interesting on both a musical and personal level. Enjoy. Peace.
Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
What up, son? What up? Grind and Pivot. Today we have an unknown legend, straight out of Long Island, New York, one of my favorite guys, Joe Scollo. How you doing, my brother?
I'm doing all right. I'm a legend in my own mind.
Absolutely, absolutely. So how you making out in the coronavirus times, the challenging times that we have today?
Not bad, Mr. Max. I'm getting by with practicing my guitar a lot because I have not much else to do, and learning songs and doing those Facebook Live sessions.
Yeah, I love them.
I'm sure we're going to get into. And
Absolutely.
I'm running at least 5 times a week to keep my blood flowing and my head clear as my head will get.
Yeah, that's true. At this point.
And,
yeah, that's for sure.
I'm dealing with it, better than I thought I would.
Okay, that's good to know, because I will definitely be asking you about that. That sounds great. So I want to go back to like the late 70s when you actually started the band. Want to talk about like what the music scene was like. Do you remember vividly what that Long Island scene was like when you started?
I remember vividly. Before Full House, I played in my first bands, I guess it was 1972. I had my first band, and the beginning of the band was me on guitar and vocal with my little K guitar, I think it was, and K amp that my parents got at probably J.C. Penney's. And it was me and a drummer, Joe Galliotto. You might have heard the name before. I lived on 4th Street, 11th Avenue, and he lived on 6th Street, like 3 or 4 houses from 11th Avenue. And that was our band. It was a duo, guitar, me singing, as well as I could back then, and Joe on drums.
How old were you?
I was 13 or 14 years old.
Gotcha.
When I started that duo.
Okay, so I'm trying to think. I remember, I think I first met you, I first heard of you or watched you or saw you in like, let's call it 79 or 78, okay. 79.
Well, Full House already had been around for two or 3 years by then.
Correct. All right, so 2 or 3 years.
When we started, just going back to the origins of the band, is I answered an ad in Good Times magazine, which I know you know.
Oh, absolutely.
For, I don't remember the exact wording of the ad, but it was a bass player and drummer looking for a guitarist and a keyboard player who sang to form a band that did a lot of 60s music. This was 1976, the winter of 76. And also disco, which was new at the time. And I had just quit a disco band, actually a popular band called the Rhythm Jesters. Your room is spinning, Mr. Max.
I know it is. I'm trying to make sure that something is off. Go ahead. You feeling all right now?
So anyway, I was in a band called the Rhythm Jesters for 3 months, for September of 76 into November of 76. And then I decided that, too much disco was not going to be good for me. But it was a good learning lesson. Now you're upside down.
I know.
There you go. Anyway, I answered that ad, and I went to the audition, which actually turned into a rehearsal. Played a couple of songs that I knew at that time that had come out in 76. I remember Sarah Smile and You Are the Woman by Firefall.
That's right. Great song with a great
Great
flute
guitar
solo. Great
and
flute
great
solo,
vocals.
right?
Yeah. Yep. I still remember the solo.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I forget, other songs were out at that time. Heaven Must Be Missing an Angel by Tavares. And,
One of my favorites.
And the Boz Skaggs album, Silk Degrees, was
Low
out.
down.
So
Low down.
Low Down. It's over. And
It's over. Right.
And well, that was very popular. But anyway, so went to that audition with this guy Brad Lent, who was our Full House's first keyboard player. God rest his soul. And he had auditioned for the Rhythm Jesters with me too, but he didn't get the audition. So then they needed a keyboard player, so I remembered him, and he came to the audition with me, and we auditioned, and we played a couple of disco songs and pop songs of the day, and then all of a sudden I went into a Beatles song, and then the whole rest of that audition/rehearsal became Beatles songs. It turns out the bass player, not so much the drummer, but the bass player was a big Beatle fanatic. So that kind of cemented, that was the cementing of the origins of Full House. And Bob Soley was the bass player I'm talking about, bass player vocalist, who is now the bass player and has been the bass player in Street Fighter, the Stones tribute band for, 18 years now.
Wow.
Yeah. He was with Full House for the first, I believe, 6 years.
Right. That's
Is that enough
really
information
amazing.
for you for now?
I think so. I think that's pretty good. So, did you guys play out?
I just want to throw in one little aside here too, which you'll appreciate. Is I was coming from that Rhythm Jesters audition in September when I auditioned for the band, and I got a ride home from the guy I didn't yet know was Brad Lent, who was yet to find out that I made the audition and he hadn't. But anyway, he lived in North Babylon, I lived in West Babylon. So he drove me home. I forgot how I got there. And on the way home, he goes, "Joe, you ever hear this before? This was had to be September of 76. And I'm like, what? And he puts on 10th Avenue Freeze Out.
Oh my God,
And
really?
I'm like, I go, what's this about? And I was not knocked out. But
That's
kind of like,
crazy.
I always remembered that. And that was my introduction into Springsteen.
Oh my God, that's a great. I love that. That's a great
A good
story.
first song to be introduced to, but I wasn't quite ready for it at that point.
Yeah, I could totally understand.
Being used to the Beatles and the finely tuned harmonies, I wasn't quite ready for that voice yet, but I knew subconsciously that it was great. So anyway,
I love it. Sounds good. Now, did you guys end up when you got into the band? Did you guys end up playing out?
With Full House or with the Rhythm Jesters?
Rhythm Jesters.
They owned a club in Bayshore called Jester Street.
Oh, that's right. Okay, right.
They played other places, but I wasn't in the band long enough to quote unquote go on the road of the Long Island discos with them.
Right.
I left because I learned a lot and I brought a lot to the band, but I wanted to play rock too. So
yeah. Who were some of the other bands back then, like STP and Company, Super Suds?
ST4 was a band back then. A lot of disco bands. Morningside Drive was another band. Ichabod Crane.
I remember Jim Cherry. I think was in that band.
I forget the guy's name, but I took his place in the Rhythm Jesters. I remember being very intimidated because he was a great guitar player. Right. And I assume he still is. I can't think of his name. I think he was from Massapequa or Seaford. I wish I remembered. But those were some of the bands. As far as rock bands, there was a local band around here from Lindenhurst called Tunbridge Wells, who did all the progressive rock, Yes, and stuff like that. And then there was, my senior year in high school, 1975, I went to UB's OTJs on Sunrise Highway.
I remember it in Bayshore. I remember
because I was hearing the ads on BAB for this band, Rat Race Choir.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
And they were going with their quadraphonic sound system, Rat Race Choir, and I went to see them, and I was blown away. They opened up. I'm sitting there. Club looked so big to me then.
Yeah.
Now it's called Misner Auto Body. And I passed it by. I'm like, that's what I thought was so big.
Yeah.
But I remember being there and waiting for them to go on. They come on and you 1, 2, 3, 4. Da da da. Da da da.
Is that? Oh my
They
God!
go into
Really?
Kashmir. I think the album Physical Graffiti had just been out for maybe a week. And from that point on, that was kind of like, I didn't know it at the time, but formed a lot of my musical inspiration for Full House and what we did. You know, they did Funeral for a Friend, Love Lies Bleeding, and Whitest Shade of Pale, and Jethro Tull, and all that. So I subconsciously took a lot from them. Oh crap! My phone is on here.
Yeah, Cardinal Sin a podcast. No,
Yeah, I'm sorry.
no phones.
Yeah. Okay.
Don't worry about it. It's not Rick Morgan calling, is it?
No, but he just emailed me, to be honest with you.
Are you serious?
Yep.
No.
Yeah.
All right, we'll get to that again.
Okay,
we'll get
okay,
to that.
so,
That's a classic.
Yep.
So, all right. So those, yeah. So around 75, those bands were really were still cooking. I got you. How did you come up with the name Full House?
Not the way that people originally thought we did. I don't know exactly where I was, but I was thinking more in terms of, you know, a packed club, Full House, and of course, our first, you know, groupies, you know, brought us a sign. We used to play. One of our first steady gigs was at the Ramsden at Farmingdale College, and these three girls came and they bought a sign and they were so proud. It was playing cards, you know, a Full House, and I was like, hey, that's great, you know.
Really? Yeah, well, I thought it was originally. I actually thought it was Jay Giles.
No,
I knew it wasn't.
That would have been more of the playing card motif, but no, it was, you know, and I guess at that point we hadn't filled any clubs, but I guess it was an aspirational, you know, name, and I guess, you know, it's been a good name for, you know, a band playing clubs and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Ever since late 76, early 77, that's been the name of the band.
Yeah, it's withstood the test of time. There's no doubt about it. 40 years, I mean, what the hell, man? 40.
The house has not fallen yet.
It's really, really, really amazing. Yeah. So 40 years, that's I don't even know what happened to those 40 years.
77 would be 43 years now, right?
Yeah, 43. That's it. What was your plan back then?
My first plan was, well, you know this, my first plan was to get girls.
Okay, that was I'm glad you said that. Absolutely.
Yeah, but I mean, like most musicians. And if they don't say that, then they're probably lying.
They're full of shit. Yeah, no doubt about it.
Or they're a jazz musician.
There you go. All right, so then taking it from that, then what was the next step? I mean, was it money? Did you?
Yeah, it was money. It was also, okay, well, here's a way not to have to work a regular job, which I knew I would never be able to do steadily. And always in my head was an interview with John Lennon where they interviewed him and, you know, asking him the same question you're asking me now. And he went to see an Elvis movie, I guess the first movie, Love Me Tender, and he goes, and he points to himself and he goes, now that's a good job. And that's basically it. And then, to make money, avoid having to do a regular job. And then it was to do, no matter what genre of music that we were doing, to try and emulate it as faithfully to the original as, as I could and as my band could, while not sounding or feeling robotic about it.
Interesting. Any want or desire for fame?
Oh yeah, but I never really had the drive. I don't know if that's the right word, to isolate myself and write. I've done it at times, but I kind of knew that doing what we did, covering diverse genres and artists, was something that I was kind of naturally good at.
Right. So that was a strength of
Emulate the
yours.
voices, and like I said, be able to do it, but not come off robotic, to make it authentic and believable, where people don't go, he just sounds like exactly like the record, like a robot.
No, I agree. And you definitely accomplished that in a big way. But go back for a second. I want to strip the onion a little bit. You wrote some stuff back then, right?
Yep.
You were writing. You were always writing, right?
We actually just posted a video up on Facebook last week of a song I wrote, and I listened to it, and we were performing it at Mulcahy's, called "It's Just a Matter of Time." Mm-hmm. And Angus, my bass player for 18 years,
of course,
has been posting one Full House song a day from these old videos that we had switched over to DVD. I send them the files of our wedding and corporate promos and some of the club shows that we did, and we post up one song a day. And last week we posted up the original "It's Just a Matter of Time," and I listened to it and I went, wow, that's not a bad song. If I put as much time into that as I did into covering other people's material, probably could have been a hit.
Exactly. So, but did you ever really dwell on that, or not really?
At periods, yeah, but I haven't in a while, to be honest with you, Lou. I'm kind of, I'm settling to the fact that, what we do and what I do is, covering other artists and being able to, pull it off authentically and have not only the audience, but myself not feel like I'm being a robot.
Yeah, absolutely. And you definitely accomplished that, like I said. So what was your process? You started the band, you got your band, it's Full House. You're rehearsing. Are you rehearsing in the basement of the house, or are you going to rehearsal studios?
Well, my bands before Full House, I didn't have a basement. We had a high ranch, so we used to practice in the den of the house, and then in the garage. We have, one of those 2-car garage, a high ranch have, and then in Joe Galliotto, the first drummer, in his basement, which his basement was like also his living room kitchen. So we used to rehearse down there, and in the summer we used to rehearse in his garage. Then with Full House, the first place we rehearsed was at the drummer who was with Bob Soli at that audition I told you about in Massapequa Park. We used to rehearse in his, I guess it was a den/studio then. And we used to rehearse there, and then when Keith joined the band in the early 80s, we would rehearse in his studio, and then in his living room, and then in his garage. And, then we started using studios in different people's houses and, whatever was available.
Right. So what was your process, musically? Because I know that you were definitely a stickler for certain things coming from your players.
Yep.
Can you take us through what the process?
Would say not a stickler, but a pain in the ass.
Okay, pain in the ass, stickler, same thing. I know that. But what really did you really, as the leader, what did you really stress to those guys that were in the band? And not only that, that's part one. Part two is, how did you really get it out of them?
Well, I didn't really have to, like the guys that I played with, I didn't have to try and get it out of them. I knew from the first time that we played together, for instance, with Bob Soli, the bass player, who we were essentially partners, leaders of the band for the first 6 years of the band. And like I said, when we started doing Beatles songs and it clicked, I didn't even analyze. I was just like, yeah, this guy gets it, subliminally. And pretty much all the players, not all, but most of the players I've had in the band were in the band because I sensed that same thing. And then if I told them, okay, learn your part, your instrumental part, this is the vocal part you'll be singing, but then I would learn all the vocal parts and take it apart at rehearsal. Okay, no, you're singing that kind of right, but this note has to be here. You got to sustain this longer. You got to pull back here, you know, to get the right dynamics, and we would work out the harmonies at rehearsal.
So you really did your due
Pretty much
diligence.
everybody learned their instrument part right, and if they didn't, then I you know,
You remodeled.
I would be pissed, and you know, but I really, with most of the people in the band, not all, they got it, and you know, they came to rehearsal ready to go.
Gotcha. What about how the band looked early on? I remember, because I want to say, let me see. I remember Tabard. I remember later on, but
that was our jock phase, Tabard.
yeah, because I saw you
We were
also. I saw you in the early '80s at
Right.
Malibu.
Yep, Capizio's.
Yeah, I think maybe Capizio's, but not even that. Not what was it, but in terms of, was it an issue? Did you discuss it? Did you talk about it? Were you guys on the same page? Were you?
Like I said, in the beginning, in that, you know, 77, 78, 79, we had more of a you know, a jock look, I call it. We had a guy who managed the band, this guy Joe Ward, and he got us like you know, baseball jackets with the Full House logo on the back.
Right, the satin jackets, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And then, you know, and then we had carpenter pants and, you know, like softball type shirts. And then I got kind of, you know, sick of that. You know, I wanted to have more of a rock look, you know. So then that kind of like, in the early 80s with the new wave, you know, turned into the parachute pants and the Capizios. Still wasn't comfortable with that. And then, you know, we turned into a, you know, black jeans, sneakers, boots, you know, more of a rock.
Yeah, rocker, petty, you know,
Yeah,
just
and I've
straight up
always, like,
rocker.
From like I'm going to say the early to mid 80s, I always would wear like, you know, button-down shirts, colorful, you know, like, you know,
Right.
I'm
Tight.
looking back at some of these videos that I ain't supposed to post. I'm like, you know what? Some people made fun of me back then for wearing their shirts, but I'm like, I'm glad that I wore them.
Right. And you stand the black jeans and the boots, right?
Exactly, yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. Right. So I do remember that. So when, I'm just trying to go for a timeline, because I saw you guys, I thought at Malibu, but when did the band take its first step up the ladder with players and also just some, you know, recognition, would you say?
Well, to me,
Yeah.
the first step up was in the early 80s when Keith joined the band. Keith Hill, you know Keith. And my drummer, who was my second drummer, a guy called Mike Farentino, who's the one who designed the logo, the Full House roof logo. And it was me and Keith and Mike Farentino on drums, great drummer, and he sang the high parts of the vocals. And he took the place of Joe Galeotto, my first drummer. And actually, Mike used to pass by my garage. He lived down the block on 4th Street when we rehearse. One day he comes by on his bike, goes, "Hey, Scollo, you mind if I come up and play a couple of songs?" Well, play a song. And Joe, the drummer, great guy, but he didn't sing. He's like, "Yeah, I guess, you know." And Mike came up and we did Derek and the Dominoes, "Why Does Love Got to Be So Sad?" And we get to the chorus and he starts singing the harmony. And right then, you know, I saw a deflated look on Joe's face, which I felt really bad about. And I just said to myself, this is right. And Mike still to this day does gigs with us sometimes. And he's a mechanic for like 35 years in upstate. He did 3 shows with us last summer with no rehearsal. I just told him, "Hey, Mike, learn these songs." And it was like we never had not played together before.
Wow. Yeah, I do. Well, that turns out to be your formula.
Yeah,
for the drummer.
the band at that point was me, Keith, Mike, and Bob Soley, the original bass player. You know, the core of the band has always been that. You know,
right.
Elf-on guitar, vocal, bass vocal, drum vocal, and what's the other instrument? And keyboard vocal.
Right. Yeah, okay, yeah, and those high parts were always designated really
Exactly.
for the
From
drummer.
that point on,
For the drummer.
any drummer we
Had to fill that.
and the next drummer of note
Chris?
and keyboard, Chris Camilleri.
Okay, that's what I remember.
He just an amazing musician, and he joined around the same time as Keith's brother, because Keith left for a short period there to join Tara, which was an offshoot of Vixen with Joe Fritz. And Drew's brother, Keith's brother Drew, came in, and he's another one, an excellent singer, excellent keyboard player,
Tremendous.
some guitar, and a great songwriter too. So for a while, it was that lineup with me and Drew and Chris, and who was on bass at that point? I think Bob was in the band for a while, but then we had some other bass players before Angus, who joined in, I believe, 86 or 87, and was with Full House for about 18 years.
Right, so 86, 87. So to go back at my original question, when did you guys...
Oh, Angus was a bass player for a period with me, Chris, and Drew, too.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. So when did you guys take that step up the proverbial ladder in the scene?
You mean to be a cool band?
Oh, you guys were cool?
Well, at one point we were.
Okay, yeah, maybe.
I was, we were playing like Tabernale House, like all the water sports motif type places, like Solomon Grundy's and OBI, which I always are great venues, but very like always like jock associated, which is nothing wrong with them,
No, not at all. Not at all.
Baseball fan, sports fan, and I just lost my track of thought there. Get me back on, Max.
The proverbial jock bars.
The step, yeah. When Angus joined the band, and then a year or two later, when Charlie talked about drummers who could sing and play.
Yeah, that's a separate issue. We know that. Yeah.
When he joined the
rest
band,
in peace. Rest in peace, Charlie.
That was like 88, 89.
Right.
That's when we, in my opinion, we really started laying into like the progressive, Boston and Deep Purple and Led Zeppelin and, Queen and stuff like that. To me, that was really the point where it was me, Charlie, Angus, and Keith. Keith had joined the band a few years before that, rejoined the band. And from like late 88 until into 97, that's when was our, in a lot of people's opinion, like our coolest peak period.
I'm going to agree. I'm going to agree on that because I met you back again really in 87, 88 when Corner Boys kind of started. Now,
yeah.
What I'm saying now, so let's get off musically for a second. Let's talk about the scene.
Yeah.
Because the scene was always a little different because of the smaller like bars, almost like, let's say, like when in Jersey, the Jersey Shore had the Springsteen, Beaver Brown up in Rhode Island, all that stuff. Those bands were paying, but then there were also Speaks, Happy Days, Detroit. What was your take on
those places? We played some of those, but I know what you're getting at. That was like, I considered like the Rat Race Choir, Zebra type rooms. And we were like, even when we were doing the progressive, the more progressive music, saying progressive, but the harder rock, the Deep Purple, Zeppelin, Boston, Queen, we still always did the lighter, fun 60s stuff. Usually our first set was concentrated on the let's show them what we can do. And then the second set was basically a dance fun set. And then we were doing 3 sets back then. The last set was a mix, like anything goes. So, yeah, we never played Detroit, but we played, Hammerheads, and we actually opened up for the Ramones at Hammerheads. What were some of the other places you mentioned? Speaks. We played all those places. We just weren't plus the fact that we weren't really doing originals, we weren't steadies at places like that. But we played them and we did well there. But You know,
Right.
so
So it really wasn't. So it was really a question. It really wasn't your market.
we were only cool for 1.5 sets. The first set, and then
Yeah, yeah, and it really wasn't your market per se. You were in a niche,
exactly.
and you had to milk the other niche. Which, yeah, I'm not saying bad or good. I just wanted to know: did you ever have aspirations? Did you think that those guys were like, quote unquote, bigger, better, something?
Well, I still think that Rat Race Choir was, as far as club band is. I didn't, to be honest with you, I never really followed Twisted Sister. We were playing, every night, and that wasn't really my thing.
No, I know that.
Rat Race Choir, I mean,
Stanton.
in their peak, Stanton Anderson, another one. But Rat Race Choir, I knew that we couldn't really touch musically, but it didn't bother me because we had things about us that they couldn't do. They like bands like Rat Race Choir or Twisted or Stanton. Well, Stanton was more of a rhythm and blues, Southern rock, but couldn't really play the places that we played, all the OBIs and all the Solomon Grundys and Rum Runner and Dublin Pub. We could play all those types of rooms because of, what we did and what we were.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree 100%. But I kind of wanted to really know how you felt about it, personally. And you did tell me.
I'm fine with it. There might have been a period there where it bothered me, but then it didn't. We had enough varied amount of rooms and the places out in the Hamptons, the Upton Beach Club, and up at Hunter Mountain and Hunter Village Inn and Slopes and in Killington, Vermont, the Pickle Barrel and Wobbly Barn. Those are rooms, for instance, that a Rat Race Choir or a band or a Zebra like that really couldn't play. They probably wouldn't want to.
No, they're definitely not. Definitely not. They definitely couldn't.
But I'm totally comfortable with it.
Yeah. Who is your main competition back then, you think?
I would say probably. Well, we were more of a variety, but there was the band The Trend who did a lot of R&B and Motown, which I guess that would be competition. Kavetsky, who was basically just doing 60s, but it wasn't like it was a friendly thing going on. We were doing a whole variety of music, from Motown to classic rock to pop to whatever. Where those bands were specializing in Kavetsky, the 60s, 70s.
Right.
The Trend, Motown, R&B, Sly and the Family Stone. And they were all great bands. And then a couple of years later, like 5 years behind us, was The Touch, which was a totally great band and still great today. But they did the 80s new wave when it first came out.
Okay, so exactly. So let's back up for a second. I'm going to say no disrespect to The Trend, no disrespect to Kavetsky, no disrespect to some of those bands. You guys musically were a lot better. Let's just say it. I'm going to say it. I think you guys were much, much better. They filled the void, but you guys musically were much, much better. Now, you and The Trend, hold on. You and The Trend might have been in a different way. I don't know. I'm not talking about rock and roll party band. The Trend were okay. I mean, Spectrum was okay. The 60s were okay. Kavetsky was okay. I'm not sure. I'm not sure I got to give that to you.
I know what you're saying. Probably because Full House had the elements of what a Rat Race Choir had. We could, like I said, I subconsciously took from them. You know what I mean? I was, an impression was made back then in the mid 70s before Full House that, stayed with me, as far as like, just that ethic of doing a song and making it sound, like the record, but with the power of a live performance and the spontaneity of a live performance.
Correct, and that worked, and that 100% worked.
Yeah, and that's probably, the difference that you saw and heard. You know what I mean? It doesn't make us better. It's just that's what we did. And because we were doing a lot of different genres, probably made us as good as we could be as musicians.
Right. Did you guys ever have, was there any time that there was anybody, you don't have to even say who it was, doesn't matter. Was there any time that you thought that you guys were going to get, you guys are on top. You guys were really on top. I know you were. Was there any band that you thought might catch you, but at the same time, was there any band that thought they were and they really, really went out there and tried, and all in good fun?
Good, clean fun.
Good, clean fun. Yeah. Good, clean fun.
Exactly.
Thanks so much for listening. Big shout outs to the crew behind the scenes, John Hart, Ian Lidovich, Russ McMahon, and of course my wife Jill. Don't forget to smash that like button, comment and subscribe, and follow at Grind and Pivot. You already know we appreciate you. Later, son.